welcome to all. I'm Dr. Juhi Asman, Assistant Professor of Communicative English, Department of CSE, AI and ML, and Cybersecurity, Faculty of Engineering and Technology at Jain, deemed to be University. I'm here to welcome you all in today's Industry Connect session, which is on cybersecurity with special reference to penetration testing. Today we have with us an esteemed guest speaker, Mr. Sandeep Khajuria. He's a cybersecurity specialist with ever-growing experience of more than 9 years in risk analysis and threat modeling. He's a senior manager at HCL Technologies. He has completed his MCA in programming from Lovely Professional University in the year 2012. He is a certified lead auditor for ISO 27001 and has assisted in conducting various IT security audits. He has proven skills in conducting vulnerability assessment and penetration testing for various organizations. He is a part-time software developer and developed applications in Java, PHP, Python, C++, and he is having a hands-on experience in writing scripts in Python and Bash. So, on behalf of entire Jain family, I would like to extend a warm welcome to you and like to thank you for taking out your precious hour to be spent with us. So, today's audience is students of B.Tech Cybersecurity and BCA CS students, as well as the faculty members of the same department. Now it's over to you, sir. Please start the session.
Thank you so much. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir, you are clearly audible to us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a privilege to be here, privilege to be among the faculty and the upcoming students of cybersecurity, I believe. I'm Sandeep Khajuria. A brief introduction has been given by Dr. Juhi already. I don't think I can add anything to it. Apart from that, I can only say I'm glad to be here. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to start with this section.
Thank you, sir. We're also glad to have you here. Most welcome.
Thank you. So are we still looking for people to join in, or shall we start?
Also, you can start in between, people will be joining. No problem.
Right. So let me share my screen. I hope it is visible to everybody now.
Yes, sir. It's clearly visible to us.
Hope the camera is also working.
Yes, sir. It's working fine.
Great. So we have students from second year and third year, I believe.
Yes, sir. We have students from first year and second year, like second semester and fourth semester students are here. From the Department of AI CSE, from Cybersecurity, and BCA Cybersecurity students are here, BCA CS students.
Okay, no worries. So this session is on penetration testing. Before that, I would just like to remind all the students here, if you have any questions while we are in the session, you can write it down and ask me at the end of the lecture itself. It would be helpful and it would be my privilege to answer each and every question of yours. I do not know how much dumb it is or how much technical it is. I try to help yourself.
Yes, sir. After the session, we'll formally have a question answer round, and there our students will be asking question to you.
No worries. So that is what I'm trying to clarify here.
Yes,
whatever question it is regarding the session itself, I'll try to answer all of them. So please note your questions. Questions are must. If you do not have questions, I believe you haven't understood the session itself. So please write down the questions that you would like to ask. Okay. So before we begin with the penetration testing, I hope you all have a basic level of understanding of cybersecurity. So you can share your answers with reactions if I can see them. Okay, no worries. We'll start with the session itself. So there was a brief that was given by Dr. Juhi. So I guess everything has been covered, nothing new to add to it. Apart from that, these are the skill sets that I possess currently and I'm working on as well. So let us get into the introduction of what we are going to learn today. So the introduction itself says it's a penetration testing session with some basic terms I have there. These are just 4 terms you have to understand for being into the cybersecurity domain itself. And these 4 terms are the basic terms that you deal in majorly throughout your daily routine when you are conducting cybersecurity across the domains and your professional life or even your personal life. Moving on, we'll have the importance of pen testing because we have to understand that why there is a need of pen testing or penetration testing. Later, we'll discuss the strategies of pen testing, which are currently being followed in the organizations. Strategies are must because you cannot blindly conduct a penetration testing or for that any operation. So later we'll be discussing the types of pen test, of course. Then I'll give you a brief on the tools that are there. And later I'll give you a slide demo, which is I have put under tactical. The demo is going to be a limited one and for the educational purposes only. If you need some detailed help, we can manage that on some other lecture. Okay, let's get on. So penetration testing itself is a big name, but then again, it is known by a lot of other names also, one of which is pen testing or pen test or just ethical hacking. Now, penetration testing is an exercise. So this exercise involves to simulate the attacks on a system, on a network, on a web application, on an infrastructure of an organization. This simulated attack is conducted to check what are the vulnerabilities that are there, what can be exploited, how you can gain unauthorized access, how can you gain the information that is protected, and you can evaluate your information security management system itself. Now, for example, you guys are working for an organization and the organization has its ISMS, which is Information Security Management System. But then you do not know how effective it is. So to test the effectiveness of ISMS, you conduct penetration testing exercise. So there are various things that you do that we'll discuss later on. Moving ahead, the basic terms that we think that come into the cybersecurity domain on daily basis. So first of all, it is vulnerability. So vulnerability is always a flaw. You leverage this flaw to conduct an exploit. Okay, so vulnerability, a flaw that weakens the overall security a computer system, network, or an application has. Now, the example that I have quoted here is browser-based application weaknesses. So these things we'll discuss in the practical part, where I will definitely show you the browser-based weaknesses an application has, and how you can leverage those to conduct an attack or exploit them. Okay, so moving ahead, we have threat. Now, when there is already a vulnerability, you need to understand its impact. So that impact is the threat. Okay, so for example, if I give you a real world example, is we all live in our homes, and when we have to move out of the home, we lock our doors, right? We bolt our windows and we lock our doors. Now, if you do not, or if your lock is not good enough to secure your door or your home, that is a threat, because everybody is going to exploit it. And that impact is going to be a major impact. So as per the definition here, the possibility of a malicious attempt to damage or disrupt a computer network or a system is a threat. Now, every vulnerability has its own impact. So threat can be great, threat can be low. That we have to understand by how an exploit for that vulnerability can be done. If one vulnerability is there, its exploit is easy to run and anybody can do it. Its impact will be high because anybody can do it and nobody needs extra knowledge for it. But there are certain vulnerabilities for which you need to have technical information, technical knowledge to conduct the exploit. So there the impact lessens, it lowers. But then again, in threat modeling, we have different things to analyze it. So that is for another session, I guess. Then we move on to exploit. Now, there is a vulnerability, there is some kind of threat related to that particular application. And if you try to exploit it, there might be some major impact. But what is an exploit? How would you leverage that vulnerability? So the technique or a piece of code that you are going to engage with that vulnerability is an exploit. For example, to get access of a server which is hosting multiple applications, you upload a shell. I'll explain you shell later when we come to practical side. Shells are .exe with pre-written statements to execute, and they get the control to you. So you upload a shell to a website, and what happens is, with the help of that shell, you get the control of the server itself. Now, either you can delete all the web applications that are there, either you can modify them, either you can remove some of the pages, or just think of it what you can do. It's endless. That shell is an exploit, because that exploit helped you gain access to the server. And the vulnerability that you exploited here was file upload, because that server didn't check what kind of a shell that you are trying to upload or what file that you have uploaded. So there was no restriction on it. Rather than only allowing a PDF or a docx or an image, you were able to upload a shell, a .exe. Okay, so if anybody has some doubts in these three, note them down. We can discuss on that later. And lastly, that we have is a breach. Now, there was a vulnerability. There was some kind of a threat attached to it. You were able to exploit it. When you tried to exploit it, that whole system was breached. Now, there is another classification of a breach that we have later down in the slides. We'll discuss it over there also. But then breach itself is unauthorized access to one's system, network, or protected information. Now, the real world example that I can give you is, for example, the Coca-Cola company has its recipe of making Coke, and that is divided among two guys in this whole world. And if one of them dies, obviously they would not be able to create it, follow through it, right? What happens if PepsiCo gets its hands on that recipe? The Coke is dead then. If that recipe gets into the hand of PepsiCo, it means Coke has been breached. Similarly, there was a recent attack on the data of CISF, one of our defense forces, and its data of more or less like 2.4 lakh personnel was leaked. So this is actually the security of the data of those CISF personnel was breached. This is a breach where you do not actually need to be there to have the permissions to access it, but unauthorized access give you that permission to access it. So whenever you think like your security has been compromised, it is a breach. Okay. So moving on to importance of pen test. So we were talking about breach in the last slide. That breach is maintained within an organization by a CIA triad, which is in front of you, having its parts of confidentiality, availability, and integrity. So till the time your CIA triad is maintained, you are secure. But if even one of them gets breached or is broken, there is a possibility of a system breach or a network breach. So we have to make sure all of our data, all of our information, all of other assets and liabilities are protected by this CIA. Now, to understand CIA, just think it like your own softwares that you write, your applications that you are creating. For example, there is a project that you have to create a .NET application on student management system, right? That piece of code that you have written is going to be confidential. I don't think so. You are going to share it with everybody. You are just going to show it to the respective teachers to whom you are going to submit it. Then availability. So whenever the teacher is going to ask you to submit that particular code of the application, it has to be there. It has to be ready, right? And now comes the integrity. Integrity is the code that you have written, it reaches your teacher the way it has been written by you. So in between, it should not be like somebody gets its hands on the code and he or she changes some lines of code and then submits it to your teacher. So that integrity has been broken. The wholeness of that piece of code is broken. So any of these are lacking in a system, the system is under a breach. Okay. Then pen test uh, is required to check the regulations and the compliance that we are having in place for getting contracts, for getting work, and also to regulate ourselves that we are up to the challenge. Now, the organizations who are dealing in IT nowadays, they have to be very regulated. Like you cannot allow everybody to carry a pen drive in your pockets, because pen drive is just a way to conduct a breach and take the information that you are not supposed to outside the organization. So these kind of controls have to be there. So compliance is also there. Background verifications checks are done, and a lot more of checks are conducted in the organizations, on the employee part, on the vendor part, on the third parties, and the second parties, and every kind of things are there. Now, regulations are there, compliances are there, but whether they are valid or not, for that we have to conduct a penetration testing exercise. Okay. Nextly, we have reputation. Every big organization, company, LLC, whatever it is. Sorry. I couldn't get that. If you can repeat yourself. Okay. So next point is reputation. Every organization has some kind of reputation attached to it, because it's a brand. Reputation is there, and you cannot sit by side and let the attacks happen to your organization that can damage your reputation in the market itself, because your reputation brings you work, your reputation brings you your bread and butter. So you have to protect your reputation as well. Now, when this CISF breach happened, there was some loss of the reputation on CISF as well, that they cannot protect their data itself. Now, What CISF personnel would be doing is they would be reaching out to the organizations who handle these kind of data and protect the data itself for the CISF. Okay, so reputation is a big thing that when it comes to the challenge, we have to protect it. Side by side, then we reach to our fourth point, which is competition and rivalry. When there are organizations, when there are brands, there are rivalries and competition is bound to happen. You do not want your competition to move ahead. So what you do is you will try to exploit their weaknesses and try to get your hands on the information that is there so that you can get to know what your competition is working on. There was a time when Yahoo were hiring only hackers. Why hackers? Because they were trying to get hands on the information that what Google is trying to do, what Microsoft is trying to do, so that they can remain ahead in the market itself. We are not going to discuss on the fall of Yahoo itself, but yes, it was a thing in the past, but competition and rivalry are still there. So competition and rivalry have given rise to scandals also. Sometimes espionages, corporate espionages are there, but not everything is related to hacking or ethical hacking nowadays. But then again, attacks, you can expect them. So I guess we'll be moving on to the next slide. Strategies of pen tests. So this is a very complex exercise to conduct. It's not like tomorrow you get up in the morning and you feel like, oh, we are going to conduct a pen test exercise. No, it is a very tedious task. You have to be very focused about it. So when we talk about the strategies of the pen test, there are these 5 listed down here. First is external pen test. So in external pen test, you are not allowed to get sit within the organization and conduct the attack. You will be conducting the attacks from outside the organization itself. Outside means either you are connected over an intranet or an extranet. Sorry, internet or extranet, not intranet. Intranet is within the organization. Internet or extranet. And then you have to simulate the attack and you have to try to find out the vulnerabilities that are there. Just opposite to external pen test, we have internal pen test. Internal pen test would be that you are sitting within the organization and you are then trying to analyze what vulnerabilities can be there. Now, most of the times that we do the internal pen test, we are trying to also gain and analyze the insider risks. So for when I said corporate espionages in the last slide, insider risks are always attached to it. So today also organizations, they try to put their guys in their competitors organization so that those people can get the data out. So that for that reason we conduct internal pen tests. So we try to analyze that within the organization there should be no threat, and even if there is some possibility of some kind of a data that can get out of hand, what controls that we can implement to mitigate that risk. Okay, moving ahead, we have blind pen test. Now with the blind pen test, you are trying to be like a real attacker, a real hacker, and then you hack everything that your organization has just to identify what are the weaknesses in the network, in the infrastructure, and all the web applications that are there. Very closely to blind pen test is double blind pen test. With double blind pen test, you only tell your CISO that I am going to conduct a penetration, full-scale penetration exercise, and you do not tell your IT teams, your SOC analysts, or firewall guys that you will be getting alerts, so don't be alarmed. No, you will just tell your CISO, I'm going to conduct this. When you are going to conduct this, it's up to you, whether you tell your CISO or not. and you simulate your attacks. Okay, and then you analyze everything, whether your attacks were given the alarms through your SIMs, your SOC analysts were there, the firewall blocked it, your intrusion detection systems, they detected it and prevented it or not. And if you was still able to get in, what data were you able to steal, or uh, what accesses that you tried to escalate it. So all these things become under double blind pen test. Targeted pen test. Targeted pen test is a very focused pen test exercise. When the client or the organization itself, they tell you that, these are the new servers which are going to be implemented in the network itself, and they haven't been tested so far. So you only have to test those new servers. Do not have to move through all the network itself. So what you do is you get the access to that particular network just to access the server, and then you test it. How you test it is upon you, but now you have been given a target that these new servers in the network have to be tested. Okay, so we'll move ahead. Okay, so now that we have all the strategies of the pen test, now we'll be reaching out to the types of pen test. Majorly, there are 3 types, but some websites you may find more, some even more. But these are the 3 major ones. These are the black box, the white box, and the gray box. Black box, I'll give you a real world example what happened to me. There was a client, he just said, Sandeep, I'm looking for a black box penetration testing. I said, okay, so let us discuss the scope. He just gave me a URL and he said, yes, now you have to perform. And then I was trying to reach out to him. I said, you didn't give me the IP address, because you get a lot of information through the IP address. So he said, no, there is no IP address. Even if there is, I don't know one. So I was like stuck. What should I do? It's just a URL, and I don't even know whether there is any application hosted over it or not. But I started with the black box pen test. I was having no information whatsoever, no application, no infrastructure, no information of firewall is there, no information whether the organization is using some kind of SIM or SOC. So I blindly started with the penetration testing exercise. How I did it, what I did, that we can discuss later. So black box is when no information is given to you, the URL, or sometimes even just the IP. You don't have the URL also, just the IP. And you start your pen testing over it. So without any knowledge of what you are going to test, it's just like a shot in the dark. So whatever outcomes that you come up, you record them and then you present it to the stakeholder. Okay. So moving on, we have white box pen testing. White box pen testing is nowadays what the organizations are following, and even majority of the clients would be following as well. In white box pen testing, what will happen is they will give you complete information that you need, everything. Now, when you try to set up the scope, within the scope, you will be given the information, what you have to test. And they will also tell you which are going to be the critical assets. Now, when it comes to critical assets, you cannot just run your automated scanners over there, because they are critical. They cannot afford them to go down. So white box helps you with all the information that is there regarding whether it's an infrastructure or a network or an application. So they'll tell you each and everything, and then you can formulate your test subjects, your test scenarios, and then you can follow through. Gray box pen testing. Gray box pen testing is when you have partial information and deliberately client keeps you in dark. This is not what is followed, but then again, some government and entities, they do it. For example, uh, I cannot name the government now. It's not Indian. So what they did is they gave us all the assets they were trying to pen test from us, uh, the applications and everything. But they didn't tell us that they are going to blacklist the IPs and only people from their country can use it. So it was kind of a big challenge for us that we had to set up our proxy in a way that the proxy was routed through their country, and then we were able to access the application, and then we ran the tests. So gray box is always going to be a tricky one, not a challenging one, a tricky one. A tricky one in the sense that some information would be hidden from, some information will be given to you. And based on that, you have to conduct your penetration exercise. Okay. So moving on with the types, we then have automated and manual pen test types. Now, when we come to manual pen test type, manual is that you engage with whatever the scenario it is, whether it's a network or an application or an infrastructure altogether or the perimeter, you engage it with yourself and you try to find out as much information and the vulnerabilities that are associated uh, by your tricks and tips. Then comes the automated pen test. So we all understand the automation, I guess. So automation is just that we put some statements in a piece of code to automate a manual task, right? Similarly, nowadays we have such tools, such capabilities in the tools that they can perform most of penetration testing, not penetration testing, I would say vulnerability assessments. For example, there is a website xyz.com. You use a scanner, you put in the URL, and if there is a login thing, you can also give the user credentials. Now, this particular scanner is going to run, and it will check all the vulnerabilities are there and give you a report. And based on that report, you have to follow through that what are going to be the false positives and what are going to be the true positives. Okay, so now there are two terms, false positives and true positives. True positives are true positive that you are looking for a vulnerability and you found it. Okay, for example, there is a vulnerability called cross-site scripting. So you are looking for a cross-site scripting. So you ran your test accordingly and you found cross-site scripting. So this is a true positive that you were looking for it and it is there. Now, you were looking for a vulnerability, for example, clickjacking. You were looking for it, you found it, but it is not there. It is not working. Found it, it means like somehow the scanner tricked you and looking at the application itself that clickjacking may be a possibility. But when you actually try to exploit it, it is not there. So this is a false positive that you were not that scanner found it, but it is actually not there. So you have to analyze what are the false positives and what are the true positives. True positives will always make your report. False positives have to be taken out. So this is the automated pen test. There is a tool which is doing all the hard work for you, and you just have to remove the false positives. Okay. Now we have the pen test process. So how this penetration exercise actually proceeds. So first off, we always try to meet with the stakeholders of the organization. If you are working for an organization and internally you have to do it, then your reporting manager is going to be the stakeholder. You have to go and ask him how you have to do it, what you have to do it, whether it's going to be a focused or a full scale or whatever it is. So you have to meet with the stakeholders and you have to set up a scope. Scope is really important because this will mark your boundary to what you have to test. Sometimes it happens that there is a contract between a freelance pen tester and a client, and they actually do not set up a scope, and the freelancer is going to test everything that is there, whether it was required or not. So always, have a set scope so that you do not over deliver or under deliver. If there is a scope, you will know that you have to deliver the expected. Okay. Always ask for critical assets. Every organization, every client you are going to follow through in your future will be having critical assets that you do not have to touch, because there is always a downtime involved, and I don't think so any organization survives on any downtime. Downtimes are critical to the business, it affects it. So always identify the critical assets in the meeting. When you have established your critical assets that you're not going to touch, apart from that, leaving aside, then you perform your pen test. Now, when you have set scope and you are about to begin with the pen test, you should try to write the test cases, the test scenarios that you are going to follow, because it happens most of the time. I have seen and I have experienced also. Sometimes we may miss out to test some important functionality or some important part of the network itself, and then later it does not pay in the longer run. So it is always good to maintain an Excel sheet where you write what you have to test, how you are going to do it. Okay. For example, if we talk about a web application, so always write that this is, understand it from the developers itself, that this is the functionality, and based on that write the test cases that you are going to test. Then you will not miss out on anything. And when you draft a report, I'm sure there will all be true positives in it. Okay. So performing pen test is a standardized uh, way that we do nowadays. And in the image that I have presented here is an industry accepted standard that we follow now. This is given from OWASP and it is followed all over the world. So with this one, we start with intelligence or information gathering. So you can say it either information or intelligence based upon your own flexibility, your comfort level, and everything. So if you are given some target that you have to do the penetration testing for, you have to gather a lot of intelligence beforehand. You start with the actual, exploits and everything. So gather as much information as you can. I guess Google Docs is their Shodan, that .io is a search engine that you can take a lot of help from. There are other tools also that you can implement. One of the famous tools is Maltego, which comes with Kali Linux bundled. Maltego reveals about the internal network of an organization, and there is no better tool than this. So there are different ways and tricks and tools to get as much information as you want for the target itself. Once you have enough information with you, you start with discovery of what assets are going to be there, what ports are active, because ports are being used by the services, and what services that you can exploit. So you have to start with the discovery and also the scanning, because alone discovery is not going to help you. So if you have a network mapper that you have started in one of the let me see. Yes, we can do practical also. Practicals are at the end, so that you do not miss out on some key aspects. So they are going to be there. No worries. Okay. So with discovery is like when you start with the network mapper in a network itself. So only the open ports are not going to help you. Behind those open port, what services are running, so we have to scan for those also. So discovery and scanning go hand in hand. With this, you can establish what applications are there, what ports are open, where you can, strike best and try to enter in, and then you can gain some privileges. Apart from that, moving on, you have established now that these are the things that we are going to target. Based on that, you can create a threat modeling. Threat modeling actually comes after you have exploited. Okay. But when you have all the information and then the open ports and services and a lot of other things that are there with your discovery and scanning, you can create a, a wire design of threat model that this particular application was supposed to be secure, but it is not. So with the initial findings that you have, you can create a model first of the threats that you have find out so far, and then you move ahead for vulnerability assessment. Vulnerability assessment can be of different levels, can be for different processes, can be for one system or n number of systems, can be for one application or for n number of applications, depending on the tool that you have, or you are conducting it manually. It can depend on anything. Once the vulnerability assessment has been done, you can establish that these are the vulnerabilities inside a system or a network or an application or whatever the target that you have set. So once the vulnerabilities are there, then you can move on to exploit them. So there comes the exploitation. Always remember, as a pen tester, as an ethical hacker, you have some ethics with you. So it's not always that you have to ruin some application so that business believes you. No, you just have to inform them at the last point that you were ready to take over the server, but you didn't do it. And you just have to submit the proofs. So it's not like the organization has given you the target of this particular server and you have to take down that server and then the business is going to believe you. No, that is a wrong practice. So server is there. You were about to take over the server. That's it. Your job is done. You just have to suggest the best practices to mitigate these kind of things. Okay. And your part is done. So you exploited in everything and you submitted it with the proofs. Your part is done. Okay. So after exploitation, we come to post exploitation. Post exploitation is, for example, you were given to test some systems in a network, not servers, systems. Listen to what I am saying. Okay. Systems. For example, that the lab that you have in your university. So your lab has a network, and within those networks, there are systems that you access to do your lab practicals and everything. So for example, like that only, you were given to test some systems. So once you exploited the vulnerabilities, you have the access of those systems. That is post exploitation. That what were you able to do once you did get into a system itself. For example, when you get into a system, post exploitation, you were able to get the documents, you were able to change or remove the registry, you made some changes to system 32 files, you removed some of them, you changed some of them, and number of things that you can do. But make sure to have or to take screenshots of it, because when it comes to report writing, you have to have a lot of proofs so that the business, so that the IT guys, so that the SOC guys and everybody in the business, they believe you that, yeah, you did it, or you were able to do it, or you were close to do it, right? Take a lot of proofs. I would suggest on that. Keep the images with you, put them in the report that you are making, and always submit the report in a PDF rather than sharing it just in a document. Now, when you had the access to systems or servers or the networks, then it comes for, you have to be ready for review. What review is? You analyze it by yourself, that this was the information gathering thing I did, and moving on, these were the things I discovered regarding the organization itself. Then this was the threat modeling that I did. Okay. Now threat modeling can be custom, it can be standardized. Standardized versions are also there. And there are some other organizations worldwide accepted for the threat modeling that you can follow. But that question is for some other time. Then these are the vulnerabilities I assessed. These are the ones that I exploited. Some of them can be kept there. Okay. Then post exploitation, I was able to conduct this and this and this activity on this and this server. So you have to record each and everything so that you don't miss out. Because when it comes to patching it, when it's come to fixing it, uh, the person who is actually going to deal with the server, he or she should know what they are going to do on what server or what network. So you have to be very clear. And then you have to give your best practices to mitigate all the vulnerabilities that you encountered. And you have to then submit your report to the stakeholders itself. Reports, when it comes to reports, reports can be of different types. One is there is a full scale report that you have conducted on the organization itself. Then there can be an executive copy, which goes for the higher management, where the people only have to see what vulnerabilities were there, and they do not have to get into the details of what actually vulnerabilities were and what you did and how it was. No, they just need to have the understanding that, oh, these are the high ones, these are the critical ones, and later. And they don't even need to get into the fixes of those. Okay, so one is the full scale, the executive ones. Then there is a targeted report. Targeted report are not followed nowadays, but back in like 6 years back, when I was doing it myself, sometimes you have to draft a report for developers, which is a little different for what you draft for IT guys, because IT guys do not have to get into the application, and application guys don't have to get into the IT itself. So it can be a targeted report for the folks that you are going to encounter or engage. So if the business is okay with the full scale report, you are good to go. If they are not, then you have to make some different reports for higher management and IT and software and whatever it is. And then you have a final meet with the stakeholders again. Then you explain this and this and this. These are the shortcomings. These are the vulnerabilities. These we exploited. These were the high ones. High ones have to be fixed immediately, and lower ones, well, you can wait for 2 months, but then again, it has to be fixed. Okay, so this is how a pen test process happens. This is I have given you the whole idea of how to start with it and how to end with it. Okay, so moving on, we have common tools. So sorry, when we talk about common tools, well, all the organizations have these tools at their disposal, but then again, some organizations are fixed on what kind of tools they are going to use, and all the tools that there are in the market are industry accepted, industry level tools. And I guess some features would be here and there missing, or more or less, but most of the times the tools solve the purpose they are built for. Coming back to common tools, there are two types of tools in the market. One are open source, others are licensed tools. Open source tools, they are open sourced so that everybody can use them. They are under GNU GPL licensing or MIT licensing, depending upon the author of the tool, or if they are being under GPL, so GNU GPL licensing is there. Now, when we come to licensed tools, these are the proprietary tools. Proprietary tools are, they are owned by some organization or some person, and they have patented it. You cannot steal a patent, or licensed tools are simply paid tools. Now, network mappers are there. So these can be open source or licensed tools. But then again, network mappers, I would like to comment here that there is only one tool which is used by everybody in the industry, and most of the scanners in background are dependent on this mapper, and its name is Nmap. Nmap is the whole and soul when it comes to network mapping skills. This is the one tool that has dominated network scanning altogether. Open source tools, your custom scripts, your paid tools, they all use Nmap in their background to conduct network mapping or network scanning. So if you have to write it down or remember, the name is Nmap, Nmap, Nmap. Okay, moving on, we have vulnerability scanners. So there are different vulnerability scanners, both open sourced and licensed. In licensed, there are some major that we know are Qualys. There is HP45, Micro Focus. Okay, there is HCL AppScan, Nexpose, then application scanners. So the names that I have took here, you can deploy those for application scanners also. HCL AppScan is majorly targeted for application. Other than that, HP45, your Nexpose, these can be used for application scanning as well. Proxy tools for web apps. So majorly the world is using two open source proxies that are there. One of which is a in between in licensing and open source. So one is Burp Suite. So you can use that with the community edition. It is free, open source, and with some pricing attached to it, then it becomes a kind of a vulnerability scanner for applications. Okay, but it is a very well known and very defining proxy tool that you can use. Other is Zap. Zap is being supported by OWASP community itself. It is also good, and both are written in Java. Both are doing a very fabulous work. So moving on to custom scripts. Custom scripts are generally for APIs, for web apps and networks. Now with the custom scripts, what you can do is, what I personally do for APIs, I write my own script in Python, and I then try to analyze the vulnerabilities associated with the APIs. Now, when the APIs are written by amateur developers, amateur being the new developers, the budding developers that we have, maybe they are not having enough knowledge how to control the information and API gives out. So there we try to find out those. With web app security, uh, you can automate some open source tools with your own scripts, so that you don't have to follow through each and every step that is there. You just have to input the URL and let the script do the work for you. So you can write your own custom script based on the open source tool or the paid tools that are there. So paid tools also offer you the API support, so that you can custom scan your applications, your networks and everything. But then again, it depends on you whether you want to use a paid tool or you want to go ahead with the open source tools. Organizations are working with paid tools. As a freelancer, you go with a mix of both. And as a professional, I guess you go with open source and custom scripts. But then again, it is not anything that you have to subject yourself to. You can always modify it, customize it. You can change the layout. You have to go through with the paid tools. Be my guest. You have to go through with the open source. I'm there to help you out. So these are the major common tools that we have, but there are many. If I have to suggest one particular tool that is there that can help you with the penetration testing, that is Kali Linux. This one is an operating system which is adopted worldwide, and the tools are already bundled into it, so you don't have to go and install anything else. Yeah, but sometimes what happens is that some professionals, freelancers, they feel like they have to install some custom scripting that somebody has wrote. But then again, you have to be sure whether that particular script is not compromising your security altogether, and it's not stealing the data or the penetration exercises results that you are performing on your clients or the organization. So when it comes to custom scripts, you have to be a little more extra careful. Okay. So Kali Linux is the OS. You can download it, install it, use it as you like. And I personally also use Kali Linux, so I find it very good. Okay, so now we are on practical. If you want a 3 minutes break, we can have it, or if you want, we can straight away jump to practical also. I'm good either way.
So you can go ahead. No problem.
No breaks? Any water or anything?
No, sir, it's not needed. On
Okay.
a like regular basis, we are having such sessions, so it's not needed. We are used to.
So let me share. All right. So when we are talking about web applications, I have chosen this one. This is a college project. It was written in one CMS, Code Igniter in PHP. And this is a juice shop. This is one which is being given out by OWASP itself. OWASP is an open source community that brings us the standards that we should follow, whether it is for the OWASP top 10 among the web applications or OWASP top 10 among the mobile applications. And they have standards for APIs also. You can check out owasp.org at your own comfort and see what it has to offer. So this particular application is written in Node.js. So you do not need anything else apart from Node and NPM installed on your machine to run it. Okay, this one is coming from the Docker itself. So yeah, there are a lot of attacks that are attached to this particular application. I will not give out all of those. Some of them will perform. Some of them will be, I guess, you to perform them. There are scanning processes that we have to follow through when it comes to penetration testing. Those we'll do it over here. And I will display some of the tools that we use for these kind of engagements. So to start with, let me start with the Nmap first. So Nmap is the tool that we employ. I hope you all are able to view the font size, or if I should increase it, or it is okay. Let me switch profile. Yeah, this would be good. Okay. This is my personal website that I'm trying to scan here, so that you can have a feel of the real world, that actually how it happens and what it happens is. Now I have used sudo here. I guess you guys are familiar with the sudo thing. Sudo just gives you privileges of root, but you're not root, and it is for some time only. So till the time the session is active, the sudo will work. As soon as the session is expired, you have to again give the sudo permissions and you have to become the root again. Okay. Most of the time, what people have done is they install and run Kali Linux as a root user. So nowadays, it is not a good practice, and I have never followed through with this. So it's better that you always remember to give sudo first with all the commands that we are going to use, because you never know which command is going to need the root privileges. So it is better to always have sudo the command first. Right. So password there. So yeah, Nmap is starting. So what we have done here is, this is a TCP scan that we have asked an Nmap to run on this particular website. Now, when the output will be shown, it will be shown here only, and then accordingly we are going to check what kind of ports are open, because the TCP only works with the ports, not with the services itself. Okay, there it is. So now here we can see, like, everything is shown here with the Nmap. I'm sure if somebody has tried it already, they would be familiar with it. Now, looking aside with all these ports that are open, check this also. This is the IP address of the server where this website has been hosted. So this is one thing that Nmap tries to do, and that is resolves the URL to IP address itself. You do not have to do this. Only you just have to be smart enough to understand it. Okay, and then you can see we have all these ports and with their states and the services that are running. 21 FTP. FTP is there because a lot of file sharing has to be there. So 21 is there. 22 is there. SSH. So SSH is your secure shells, but not so secure that you can remotely transfer data. But anyhow, discussion for some other time. 80 TCP. So if there is any kind of HTML thing that you have to host, 80 is always there, but you redirect the 80 port traffic to 443. 443 is HTTPS, which is nowadays more secure one. So 80 will also always be there because most of your servers are working on 80. But what you do is you redirect your 80 traffic to 443. So similarly, these are some of the open ports that this particular server is having, and this is one kind of scan that you can run with the Nmap. There are n number of scans, n number of things that you can do. I can run another scan so that I can give you a better idea. So here, rather than choosing ST, we will move with SV and -O. Now this will increase the time of scan. So let us not go with let us create all the ports open with this. This will increase the scan time, but then again, you will have a much more better clarity of the result that will come in. So let us start with this one. So -O tries to determine what operating system is being run on that particular server. So this is what we are trying to get over. But the possibilities are remarkable with the Nmap. If you try to master it, you definitely have an option to go into network scanning part, network security part, because in the whole world, whichever scanner that you find useful, helpful, easy to do, is running Nmap in the background itself. Okay, so till the time it gets done here, let me take you to one other tool that we implement or run to profile our web applications. And one that tool is Nicto. Nicto is one such tool that we use to check the vulnerabilities associated with the server and the browser headers that we are going to check. Okay. So here you can give the credentials like this so that it can actually get into the application and test it for you. So there you go. The Nicto, it resolves the URL that we have suggested here. And what it does is it will check the whole server itself and then tries to analyze what is missing there. And based on what is missing, you can analyze what possible vulnerability would be there. Okay, so as far as what we have right now with us is, it is revealing itself as Apache 2, which is an outdated one. So you can leverage your attacks pertaining to Apache 2 also. And then later you can see what possibility of an exploit could be there. And the anti-click checking X-frame option header is not present. So this particular server, which which is a shared server, is not helping any web application to protect itself against X-frame options. X-frame options are there. These are the header values that tells a browser that whether the particular application can be run in a third-party frame or not. I'm hoping that you understand the frames in HTML. Okay, if not, no worries. This one vulnerability is there, so we'll try to exploit this one, and I'll tell you how to do this. Okay, so this will actually take a lot more time, and it will try to follow some more information for us, for which we have to analyze and make sure that we try to get some vulnerability out of it. Expect CT is one kind of vulnerability that you can exploit using Burp Suite. There are SSL strict transport HTTP headers are also not defined. So yeah, these are browser-based vulnerabilities from the server itself that one can try to exploit. So let me switch to this one again and see what, yeah, it has done it. Okay. So now the results almost remains the same, but then in here that we are trying to see whether it is using or what OS it was trying to use. So more or less it is hosted on Linux one, and it is not sure about the kernel itself. It's looking more or less kernel of Linux 4. So we can direct our attacks on Linux 4 kernel, and then we try to exploit it. So these are the two simple examples that I have demonstrated here, how you can use Nmap for better information gathering and your scanning and discovery. So with this information and scanning and discovery, you can leverage your vulnerability assessment. Okay, and then you can try to leverage these vulnerabilities with the exploits that you have at your disposal, and you can then move ahead with your penetration testing. So switching back to Necto. Okay, so till the time it is doing its work, let me go ahead and show you how you can leverage this anti-click jacking. So I have taken this particular simple piece of code where I have this frame. Let me just increase the size here of the font. I hope it is visible now. So yeah, it's just a basic script and an HTML that you can host, and then you can check whether this particular application will be running in your frame or not. If that particular application is able to run in your frame, then there are other attacks that you can perform with it. You can lure people in to give their credentials so that you can socially exploit their user accounts and a number of things. So let us start with this one first. Okay, save it. Reach here. I will try to open my local host. Now, this is the page that I created. Okay, Firefox can't open this page. Now understand this thing. What I did is actually I'm trying to display this website, this one. This is my personal website I've created, and it is running on this particular URL. But I did not wait for the server to secure it. What I did is I embedded anti-click jacking options in my website application level. So even if the server is not asking browser to do it, I'm telling the browser from my application that you have to block this click jacking attacks. Okay, so because of this, the application is not visible here, and Firefox is telling you this. Now let us just change this particular code to a little bit friendly for us. is this, and then we again give the password here. And now if we navigate to this place, we reload it. Okay, so I guess with code igniters also you get these kind of things, but no worries, we'll try something else that will show here. Let me try this again. There it is. So this particular page, I did not protected it with the header values that were supposed to be there, that make sure the browser understands to not display everywhere. So this particular thing is being shown in a third-party frame. Now, just imagine if Facebook login page can also be displayed in a third-party app. What you can do? You can leverage your JavaScript skills, and then you can perform an attack where you ask, or actually not ask, actually you leverage the clickjacking attack in a way that whenever a person is trying to click on that Facebook login page, they are actually trying to click on your frame, and you capture that particular click. You ask them to enter your credentials. You can display JavaScript based text boxes and everything, and you can get the credentials. Even though they'll be routed to their own account, you will get the credentials. See, we have performed this kind of an attack. I'm not fully leveraging this thing so that none of you perform it, because this is for educational purposes, and we have to learn that these things happen this way and how we protect them. Okay. So how we can protect from this attack is that you have to set your X-frame options to no safe or same origin. These are the two things. And if you do not have anti-click jacking options there, I guess these are kind of attacks that will happen, and nobody wants their website running in a third-party frame. So this is one attack that we have performed here. I guess you get the gist of it. Okay, so moving back to Nikto here, yeah. So host name does not match certificate's name FTP. So it means their FTP is not secured enough. So you can leverage your FTP attacks also. For FTP attack, there is a very big framework altogether, which comes with the Kali Linux built in, which is named as Metasploit. Metasploit has a lot of things. Since this particular server is Apache server, there are a lot of exploits already within the database of Metasploit. You can leverage Metasploit's functionality and its exploits to conduct all the attacks on those. So FTP is not that secure. You can use that to your advantage. No CGI directories are found. CGI directories mostly hold the code written in C++ or C. So sorry. So you can leverage, we could have leveraged the attack if some libraries were there with the CGI, but no issues. With the MIME type, yeah, with MIME type, you can actually capture some of the requests coming and going through the server itself, the application itself, and you can try to manipulate them by uploading some shell or some piece of code that can respond back to you so that you get the access to the server itself. Okay. Now here it is showing allowed HTTP method get, post, options, and head. So delete is not there, put is not there. What put is does? Put is just like post, but put deliberately writes or overwrites the data on or existing data, right? Get and post, we know this is for data sharing, but then again, get uses a limited amount of data. Post uses higher amount of data. Post will not reveal its contents on the search bar, the URL bar that is there, address bar to be precise. Get will reveal everything that is there with the URL and the address bar. Options and head, therefore application performing things. The one that would have helped were put and delete. Those two methods are not there, so nothing we can do much about it. So we let this finish. We'll start with another tool, which is for the application itself, and its name is Skipfish. It also comes bundled with the Kali Linux, but there is a different approach to it. Only with the Skipfish, what you have to do is you have to submit the switches first, and then you enter the host URL. Okay, so I'll be demonstrating it here. -O is output, so you always need an output. You can do with the nmap also, you can do it with the NATO also, but since these things you can perform on your own, but with this Skipfish you have to have an output directory or it will not perform the scan again. So -O is the output, then we have to show it the path where it has to save the output itself. Okay, so here let us say lecture. Okay, so this is going to be the directory where it is going to store all the output that is going to come. Then ID. Okay. And now comes the URL. Okay, see, Skipfish will not target the ones on the internet. We'll try to do one on the Docker itself. Okay, because for the internet one, it will take a hell lot of time. There are a lot of things involved when it comes to the internet activity. So let us do it on the localhost one. Web application scanner. I guess there is something that we have missed. Okay, so there is a learning curve here. Just like I am a bit confused here about the switches. So if you also get stuck here, the best thing that the Linux has to offer is you can always check what switches are there with the tool itself, and then you can manipulate your scan. So write the name of the tool itself, then simply -H goes to the help, and then it will tell you what you have to do and what the right switches that you have to use. Okay, so yeah, -A was good. Okay. All right. So if there is already this directory present, it will not use it for some other scan. Okay, so you actually have to remove it and then again create it. So the best thing is to just remove it altogether. Yeah. So this is how it starts. Either you can wait for 60 seconds or you can just click anything, and this is how it is running. So I guess this particular scan is not happening because it has performed this one. So yeah, let us change this to the real one that we have, the hosted one. So now it is conducting the scan. So once it has conducted some scan on one particular URL, I guess the Skipfish doesn't do it. These functionalities have been updated recently with the recent version of the Kali Linux. Previously, these kind of things were not there. And its results have also been improved over the time. So now I can suggest this particular tool. You guys also can use it. So let me switch over to Nikto. Let us see if it has found anything. Okay, so nothing new has been found here. So let us block this one. It's just an overhead. I guess you now have the idea of how you can run and find the information regarding the servers and the application headers. So let us block this one here. And I guess we are done with this one. So Skillfish, these are the database stats. These are the scan stats. And here, if we look about 52.8% gain, it's going to take a hell lot of time because the application is quite big now. There are different modules also. The good thing is that I do not have any subdomains. But when it comes to scanning a URL, since it has taken this particular domain as its target, so all the subdomains will also be scanned by this particular tool. And same is the thing when we do it with the Nikto as well. every subdomain will be scanned, and based on what vulnerabilities exist on it, it will be shared in the output that will reach out when the scan is done. And then I'll show you an index file will be made that you can open in any browser, and then later you can print it and share it with your stakeholders or your colleagues or whatever. Then what I have in my mind is social engineering attack. I'll just let you know how you can perform one. But let me just give you a warning here. If you perform this attack on your friend, he will be receiving endless emails, and it will annoy him till the time he shuts down his phone or her phone. So do not do it with your friends, even with the worst enemies. This is just for education, not for playing tricks on your friends. So let us dive deep into it. There is a very good utility or the framework we can say, which is SET, Social Engineering Toolkit, that you can use. Social Engineering Toolkit will also be run through root privileges. So you make sure that root is always there. Right. So let me just switch the profile so that you can see better. Okay, so this is the interface the SET has, and you can leverage this to conduct social engineering attacks. With some attacks, you can have some kind of a payload attached to it. It will generate an email that will be sent to your victim or your friend or whatever. And as soon as the person downloads and clicks on that particular payload, that payload can be a PDF or a doc or a .exe of some kind. .exes will not be entertained by the email servers, but the PDFs and doc or PowerPoint presentations, that is just a limit to your imagination. So as soon as that person clicks on it, opens it and runs it, you will be in control of that person's desktop or laptop or whatever the platform it is. You will be having the credentials of that person. You can do a lot of things, but reminding you again, it's just for educational purposes. Please don't do it. So if we move a little down, we can see here what we have to select. So these are social engineering attacks. So we'll do those. This penetration testing is not going to help you in any way. So rather not do it. These are just fast tracks, and so fast track that they are not going to yield good results. So for penetration testing, stick to Metasploit, MSF, Metasploit framework. Okay. So social engineering is selected here. Then we see a lot of other options: spear phishing attack vectors, website attack vectors. Now, when you come to website attack vectors, what happens is it will create a copy of a legitimate website which is already there on the internet, and then you can host it on your server, your Kali Linux server, like the one that I have, the local host one, which is updated version of Apache, and you can share your URL once it is available on the internet. You can share that URL with your victim or your friend or whatever. As soon as that person tries to reach to that website, if it is a login page of Facebook again, so he'll be tricked to enter the credentials. No matter of what the OTP is or not, you will get the credentials anyhow. Okay. Now for OTP, it's a different lecture, I guess. We're not here to run the attacks. So I'm just giving a brief idea of what website attack vectors are. So let's go ahead with the spear phishing ones, because these are the phishing attacks that we can perform to get credentials of the people. Okay, perform a mass email attack, create a file format payload, or create a social engineering template. So leaving aside first, the two are that you can customize these things as per your liking. Okay, there are pre-default things or payloads and templates already present, but then again you can create your own, and it's always good when you have your own, because the predefined or default ones are not that good that you can use. And a guy like me, he can always tell, I can tell by from the URL itself, but educated guys, they can tell from the body that this is coming from ICT. So let's go with first option. And now here are a lot of things. You have to understand these things, and only then you can be able to choose these things. For example, the victim that you have chosen, I do not need to know who, and that person is running on Windows 7 or Windows 10, where he doesn't have the full updates or doesn't believe in updates or any kind of things, and he is still running with an outdated version of vulnerable Windows Media Center. So you can attack with third option. Similarly, you have to just find that your your victim is having any of one of these 22 things to attack him or not. If there is something, you can leverage these attacks. If there is not, then I guess you have to find more information about the victim, and then you can leverage attacks, or you can create your own custom attacks that you can move forward with it. Now, let us choose third one to move ahead. Here, what this tool is trying to ask you is, it will create a shell that will ping back to you. You means me here. So when you are conducting the attack, your shell, once it is opened at the victim's PC, it will report back to you. Why it will report back to you? Because it will try to create a connection with your system, which is running the attack. After the connection is successful, the shell will work and it will get the access of the victim's PC and give it to you. Now you can operate its webcam, you can operate its microphone, you can copy data from there, you can have the screenshot of whatever the guy is doing, and your imagination is the limit to what you can do. So these are the things. Now you understand better on yourself what kind of thing that you want to run. Okay. Okay, so let us go with the first one, TCP shell, which is a simple enough. Here, there are only two things that you have to put. One is going to be the L host, one is going to be the L port. L host is always the local host, and port is going to remain what it is. So you just don't have to enter anything. You can simply click and click, and it is doing its job. Now it is asking you whether you have to keep the file name, because the file name is going to be moo.pdf, and moo.pdf has been flagged by majorly all the good email services already. So even if there is some legit email coming to your inbox with a moo.pdf file, it will always be flagged and will directly go to your spam. So it is better you change, but here we are not going to run through with this attack. So let us keep this thing. Okay, so here, whether you're going to do a single email address or you're going to attack with a mass email attack. With a mass mailer, you can reach out to thousands of people at one time, and all of them would be annoyed at the single point of time. With a single email address, you are going to target it with one person. And here I'll draw the line, because now it will ask you what the username you are going to use to send the email, and what domain that you have that you would use to send the email, because you have to make it a legit one. So I will still emphasize not to go ahead with this one, because it does annoys the person who will be receiving the emails, because it shoots not less than 500 emails at once, and that person would be sitting whole night long removing all the emails if that person is not using a PC. Okay, so let us not go through with this one and close it here. Now I guess you understand how the phishing attack works, and the best way to stop the phishing attack is that you only open email from legit emails. Yeah. So if you know the person, like for example, there is a person named Ram. He has a friend Sham, but he does not know a person Mohan, and he is receiving email from Mohan. So Ram should not open email coming from Mohan, because it could be malicious and with intent. But if Ram is getting an email from Sham, obviously he is going to open that because he trusts Ram. So Sham, sorry. So always open the email that you think are coming from the parties that you trust. If you do not trust the party who is sending you the email, don't open the email. Or what you do is you sandbox your PC first, and then you open the emails, because if anything happens, it will be in a very contained environment. It will be sandboxed. As soon as sandbox is removed, the effects will be removed, and your physical machine will be untouched. Okay, so here we are looking at the screen where the Skipfish is working its magic, and it will take a hell lot of time, because I told you there are going to be a lot of things coming in, because these organizations who are giving me the space to host this application are having other applications as well. So they would be having mechanism to prevent these type of scannings and attempts also. So firewalls are also in place, SIMs are also in place. They would be getting a hell lot of alerts that requests are coming in from this particular thing. And regarding to this thing, what people have done in the past also, what they do is they try to run the scans on the PCs which are running with antiviruses. Now antiviruses are present on systems will try to block all these attempts. So it is suggested that you take the consent first, and if there is some kind of attack that you have to run on a system, you disable the antivirus, because it will not yield you good results. And do perform your attacks with and without the antivirus, so that you can understand uh, how the traffic flow was abrupted when antivirus was working and when antivirus was not working. Okay, so if it is okay with you, I think I should stop this one, because it will take a hell lot of time, and we will not be able to cover that thing in this particular session here. Shall I?
Yeah, so for for the further details, you can engage another session for the Industry Connect. So
Sure.
yeah, so I think for now is okay. So Thank you for such a thought-provoking session, and I'm sure everyone present here really valued the knowledge you shared and are the most appreciative of this session. So now proceeding further, we'll have a question answer round. The session is open for the discussions and questions. So students or anyone has any doubts?
I would like to stop you here. I have only 2 or 3 things to tell the folks here, so that they can try, and these are very cool things to do.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so I'll stop the scan here, and in this particular location you can find the report that so far has been captured by this particular tool here. If I have to go to it. Okay, so documents hash was there, index file will be, index is here. You can open this with any browser that you feel like using it. Open this file. I'll on Linux majorly there is Firefox. So yeah, this is a kind of a report that it will give it to you. Now you can look here. There is HTML form with no apparent XSRF protection. XSRF is one of the vulnerabilities that we have. It is in the top 10 vulnerabilities for applications. Okay, mail.php. Yeah, it's okay. So similarly, you will find the vulnerabilities listed when the full scan happens. All other vulnerabilities when encountered will be listed here with their trace. The trace helps you understand with the request and the response that you have received from the server, and you can analyze it in a better way. Now, this was fully automated, where the request was not stopped in between, and you cannot tamper anything. Okay, but there is another tool that we can talk about, and I'll show you just 1 or 2 requests that you can capture, and then I'll show you cool tricks that you can do for the blind SQL injection attack. Okay, so let me get into this settings. Yeah, for this proxy tool to work, what you have to do is you have to manually set the proxy to localhost with the port 8080. Always remember this. Also, always check this checkbox. Also use this proxy for HTTPS. So whether the application is working on 80 port or 443 port, they both will be routed from this particular proxy itself. Okay, that proxy tool is Burp Suite, and the interface of the Burp Suite looks kind of like this. And the proxy that we have to set is here. So intercept should always be on. If intercept is not on, your request will not be intercepted. So everything that you are watching on your browser will never be intercepted if this is off. Okay. Here it has the option to open browser. That browser will be a Burp Suite browser. As soon as that browser is closed, everything is lost. But you can use your own browser, route them from this proxy here, do these things, and now I'll show you how it works. Okay, so here when you click login, by running the scans, you already know the credentials now, and as soon as you click login, now you have to do this. Now it is blocked by the Burp Suite. So this is proxy intercept. The Burp is now intercepting all your requests. Here you have to do it forward. You always have to do forward. And all the requests that are being intercepted by the Burp are being captured in the HTTP history itself. Okay, so forward again. So when you see now we are logged into it, and the username is Anush Kumar. So this is a normal way, but you can capture each and everything. When we move back to the Burp itself, HTTP history, and now you see everything was captured here. Your request is here, your response is here, And now you can analyze everything. Your login was this, but you can try and use different combinations, or try to apply brute force attacks, because just right click on this particular request. There is one option to send it to repeater. On repeater, what you can do is you can change these things and send, and then you can analyze how the application behaves, because the cookie is already set in the header values. It's not going to change till the time you log out, or you enter a different cookie. Results will be shown to you. So this is how majorly you can intercept your request before sending it to the server, and make some changes to it. See if you can remove some header values, and then how the server responses back to you, and analyze the response. Based on your response, you can get some insight into what vulnerabilities you can follow through. Now, expect CT was one application header that was shown to us in NICTO. So here you can make changes to expect CT and see how the application behaves, how the server behaves. Okay, so burp in itself is a very big tool, very extensive tool. It is now being adopted in various organizations also. This is a community version, so it is free of use. Only thing is you will not be able to use the intruder or sequencer. Now, repeater and proxy are good enough for us to learn enough things, and organizations are going with the paid version. So I would suggest that you get into some organization who are into burp, but at least have command with repeaters. Okay, so here I would stop this one, because this introduction here is fine enough. Let me switch back to the settings and remove the proxy. Okay, so now we are good enough. Now let us see this particular application here. Here, when we see at the account, we are actually having no account, right? We have to log in here. But what you can do is you can try to log in with this thing, because I also know what the credentials are. It was just an application given to me. There was nothing shared, anything else. What the username is, what other credentials there could be, or what user roles there could be. So what here I have done is, this is a truth value, which in turn this one, which in turn will always give you true. Every time it will give you true. So what you are trying to do is, you are just trying to put this particular email address just to satisfy if there is any kind of an email check with this particular inbox. What inbox? Text box. So let us see whether this particular thing works or not. Okay, so object, progressive event. Maybe this particular thing is not required here. So let us try with this one now. Come on, this is not working. Let me just switch the places here. No, I guess there is one thing that we have to do that that I haven't done. Yeah, I have to run this command again. What Docker does is, when the application is being rendered not usable, it closes it. I guess this is what happened with me. The session ran for like 40 minutes and nothing happened. So yeah, the application is now working, I guess. Yeah, so these are the three challenges that we solved because the application was not being entertained by the server itself. Good. We try this again. Because I was telling you about, the checks that we can impose on the text box, whether this particular thing is email or not. So yeah, see, you logged in. Now you can log out from here. And if you have to check, you are the admin now. So this is a blind SQL injection attack. It may work, it may not work. You don't have to get into that. But yeah, you should always try these kind of things. Maybe sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And with the penetration testing exercise, you have to remember one thing, that you just have to find things. It could be a possibility that you find everything. It could be a possibility that you find nothing. When you do not find anything, you just have to be sure that you actually followed everything to the book, to the letter, and nothing came out. But if you are finding everything, you have to double check whether it's a true positive or it's a false positive. So always remember these things. Just stand to your basics, and I hope you will do great. And if you need the reference to this particular application, I can share it with you. I can share it with Dr. Juhi, and she can facilitate that to you guys. And these are the things I just wanted to, show you guys that if poorly written applications are there on the internet, these things have happened. And if applications are good, these things will not happen. So I will now submit my session here, and we are open for Q&As. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. So if anyone has any queries, any questions, they can ask. I think, sir, already you have clarified enough with your lectures and with detailed, what I can say is like with some detailed hands-on sessions. So they are already clear about this. So on this note, we have entered the final moments of our session where I feel privileged to propose a vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to thank our Department of CSE, AI and ML, and Cybersecurity and Futurance Technologies to conduct a wonderful event of Industry Connect, where our students with faculty members are fortunate to connect with eminent industry experts of various domains. On behalf of the Department of Computer Science and Engineering of Jain, deemed to be university, and all the students, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to Mr. Sandeep Khajuria to accept our invitation and for refurbishing our students with the best possible and upgraded education. I must mention a deep sense of appreciation to our beloved HOD, Sir Dr. V. Vivek, for his constant support and motivation. I sincerely thank our student of very motivated and hardworking faculty members to join the session. And finally, I would like to thank our students for paying their valuable attention. Once again, thank you. Thanks to all for joining the session.
Well, I hope I didn't bore anybody.
No, sir, it was a really great session. So for next Industry Connect session, we'll have our plans, and accordingly, so you can go ahead with your another session.
Sure, I'll be delighted to be back again if the opportunity comes to me.
Yeah, that will come. Thanks a lot, sir. Have a great day.
I'll be available on the chat for 5 minutes if anybody has to ask anything, or you can ask me here also, on that also, one-to-one also, or in the group also. So as comfortable as you are, you can ask me.